And another interesting story is about this digital is I have a grand nephew,
Mm-hmm.
and he's about 12 years old, and he's studying in a a school where they're doing virtual classes.
Mm.
So these boys are very, very sort of naughty, and the
Mm.
teachers try to keep them, and try to keep looking who's listening, who's not listening, and of course they can't stop their videos.
Exactly.
So these guys figure out a way where
Mm.
they could freeze their face but
Mm.
keep the fan on the top moving.
Mm.
So the teacher would think that they're there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So there are ways to beat the system.
Oh, there's so many, so many. After all, they are still manipulated by human beings.
Yes. Well, my clock shows another 5 minutes, so maybe in 3 or 4 minutes we'll start. Uh, well, my clock strikes 6, so a very warm welcome to all of you for the 10th session. And even as I speak to you, I'm so delighted to report that Lhakdor has posted on the chat box that he's going to be with us for another 10 to 12 sessions of this round, I'm hoping, and then this can continue for as long as he has patience for us. And I was also talking to Lhakdor about how the impersonality of communicating via Zoom, and it would be truly wonderful and help us all connect with each other if those who have not put on their cameras that you do so if you're comfortable. I mean, there's no pressure to do this, but it's always nice for the speaker and for all of us to see who our fellow members of our Sangha are. And so please do that if you're comfortable. And so as Corona soars in Delhi and Mr. Trump prepares to leave the White House, and in this time of continuing ferment and change and challenges, we continue to be deeply blessed. And these Friday evenings with Lhakdor, something it's sort of like an emotional oasis that we're able to access each week to recharge ourselves with the water of wisdom and the marvelous ways in which Lhakdor helps us relate high philosophy with our everyday predicaments and challenges. And I picked up this book he had recommended on Buddhism for busy people, and it's a very useful book. And for those who I didn't know when he mentioned this book that this is the same person who authored the Dalai Lama's Cat, and which, if you haven't read, is a wonderful read. So thank you. Without much ado, thank you, Lhakdor, for recommending the book, for creating this wonderful space for us. And it's over to you with deep love and gratitude. You need to unmute.
I have unmuted.
Yes. Now I can hear you.
Somebody muted it.
Oh, who is it?
It looks like I have not much control.
Okay.
Anyway, I was saying thank you, Rajiv, for this regular, short, beautiful introduction of the teaching. And I must tell you, I have no particular experience or wisdom to share, but I'm sharing the wisdom of Atisha and Dongtamba, which is really, really like amazing teachings. The more you spend time and reflect, the more you see the depth and the great benefit that can come through such teachings. And it's not only these teachings, which are of course very, very special, because as I earlier mentioned, that Atisha was not an ordinary person. He, through his practice, he has really gained so much realization, both in Sutra and Tantra, and on various occasions, he was really performing magic, not only just teaching, but really performing magic. For example, when the Tibetan king and the translators were trying their best to invite him, had a lot of difficulty, and then finally, when the translators were on their way to India, on 2-3 occasions, his manifestation came on the way to show them the route and other things, And when they were surprised by this surprise visit by somebody and telling everything, and on asking, who are you? Then this appearance replies that with the passage of time, you will know. So it all turned out to be the emanation of Atisha helping them. So there are many accounts like that. So amazing person with lot of practices. And his biography is really like the biography of Shantideva and Buddha himself. Very, very similar. So anyway, the main point is, we can make our life very simple and also very, very complicated. Knowledge is important, but with knowledge, I think we should not make our life very, very complicated. Sometimes, we have a lot of ideas, which is really like borrowed ideas in the mind, but we hardly implement any of these wisdoms in our daily life. So therefore, we will end up like a person carried by ocean and dying of thirst. And I read a few texts which all clearly mentions, if you just hear the teaching and also do the second step of thinking, but don't meditate, meaning that if you don't integrate it in your daily life, then it will be just like person who is thirsty and has heard about the water and seen the water, but did not drink the water. So he will die of thirst. So it's like that. Unless we do all the three, there's thinking, hearing and thinking, and most importantly, meditation, which is not just sitting somewhere in the corner and closing your eye, but meditation means really mixing those or making those positive qualities as a part of your life. And as I repeatedly mentioned during these sessions, that even if you do very well in one particular practice, that will help you really, really advance forward and give that confidence and the happiness and so forth. And it is because of our not being good in one thing. That's why we just, unfortunately, what we do is better than nothing, but it becomes another kind of worldly act. Teachers also another worldly drama. Students also another worldly drama, because since we are in this world, we have to do something, either business or dharma or this and that, but all will end up more or less in a similar way, unless we really get the most important insight to transform our life and to be of benefit to many others. Unless you realize that point, you will end up just completing another mundane human worldly activities. So therefore, the great teachers, they repeatedly tells their followers and students that if you really want to do some of this internal development, which is called practice, if you really want to do it, you need to give up many of the distractions, many of the useless worldly activities. And these teachers, they say that these worldly activities are like waves on an ocean. One wave finishes, another wave will come, and it will never come to an end. So many of these activities you need to see which is important, which is not so important. Don't just follow a prevailing custom or tradition. The so-called custom or tradition are all made by not so intelligent human beings, unfortunately. And the worldly ways of life is so powerful that we are compelled to follow it. So therefore, when doing some of these practices, you need to be a little bit bold also. You need to be a little bit decisive also and do it a little bit differently. It's not only in the Buddhist practice, but in any life's achievement, whether it's science or any education, unless you do and live slightly different from other people, going within yourself and accumulating those needed qualities, will be like any other human being will not be able to excel. So therefore, I think, especially in the case of spiritual practice, which means internal development, it's quite difficult in the sense because we are so used with following what we can see, what is seeable, what we can see, what we can touch, but what you can't see, what you can't feel, or you can't hear, like the mind, which is colorless and shapeless. Then we tend to forget it. Not only your mind, you tend to forget your friend when you don't see their face for a long time, you see. So that's human tendency. So but then you need to realize that at the end of the day, what you are going to get, how much you are going to benefit others, is really the attitude of your mind, how strong your mind is, not how physically you are strong, how physically you are healthy. Your mind must be healthy. Your mind must be strong. And it's important to realize before it is too late to stop many of the nonsenses that we have been doing for the last so many years. Now, especially in the case of more grown-up people, we should have learned something by now, what you've achieved by doing the same kind of thing again and again. So therefore, I think it is important to sacrifice some of the smaller, lesser important things for greater goodness. Because life is short. There's not much time, there's not much time, as I repeatedly mentioned. So therefore, it is important to at least uh, catch some of these main ideas. I mean, it's don't make it complicated, as I said. The fact that the mind is your ruler, your boss is plain. It's very obvious. And if your mind is not one with wisdom, and if your mind is not really like educated in the true sense of the term, and if you let your mind run wild and become unruly, then we can all clearly see what will be the consequence. So there is no really shortcut, no other means. Money can't buy anything that would really make you quiet and calm and tranquil. And it is the this magical power, the magical energy, the so-called mind. Once you're able to handle that properly, develop the right attitude, everything gets transformed. The so-called blessing comes by transforming your mind. It is not necessarily by some other person touching your head or giving some piece of cloth or things like that. The real blessing, the transformation. In Tibetan, it is called Chinla, which means transforming into a state of magnificence. And you can transform yourself into a state of magnificence through your own deeds, especially your mental attitude. Because as I repeatedly mentioned, that at the end of the day, if your mental attitude, your mental outlook, if your inner kind of state is not good, then nobody can help you in the true sense of the term. But if your inner turmoil is removed, agitation is removed, right, and unnecessary waves of thoughts are removed, and when you have that right perspective, then it looks like, I'm not saying with great experience, but it looks like that you will then have no reason to fear, whether it is your death or death of other people. Whatever is happening, it's a natural process, and you need to simply understand that natural process, right? And once you understand that natural process and live your life and transform your mind accordingly with that natural process, then it's really like a, a great swimmer, which is able to uh, uh, swim very uh, efficiently, however strong the waves of the oceans are. I've seen some of these great swimmers. We are those of us who don't know how to swim. We are scared of even going by the even entering the water. But those who are well equipped with, then they know the crest and the toe, the high and the low of the wave, and they are able to ride it properly, and they enjoy it. So it is like that. We experience a lot of ups and downs in life, and more importantly, there are the so-called negative emotions and positive emotions. Once you know all the state of all this, how destructive negative emotions are, how constructive positive emotions are, and then thereby you cherish the good ones and distance yourself, social distancing from the negative ones, you know, then there's nothing. It looks like there's nothing to be scared, nothing to be feared. As somebody correctly said, there's nothing to be feared, but everything to be understood. You need to understand the reality. That's very important. As I said earlier, also, all these teachings of the Buddha are actually written in the rocks. As I said, they are law of nature. They are not invented by Buddha. The Buddha discovered it. They are already there in the nature. So nature is our greatest teacher. So his teachings, if you look carefully, they are written in the rocks, written in the trees, written among sentient beings, among human beings. The teaching on impermanent is your life, the life of a tree, life of a rock. The teaching on suffering is your life, life of other sentient beings. These are there. This is not something that he fabricated. But what he was saying is that for any growth, for any life, There is a positive influence, there is a negative influence. So if you take care of the positive influence, then the life or the tree will grow, and not only grow, but flourish and also produce flowers. But if you let that life or tree ruled by the negative causes or insufficient causes, then the tree or the life will decay and fall and not able to flower. So these are like kind of simple, actually common sense things. So therefore it is important to understand all these various Buddhist teachings or other wisdom traditions. There are people who really spent time and thought about the reality. They were only talking about one reality, call it emptiness or impermanence, whatever you call it. These are different facets of reality. And by not understanding, not accepting these facets of reality, and in fact, by trying to go against these facets of reality, we are unnecessarily suffering. If you understand impermanence, as I mentioned earlier, just to give you a hint, if you understand impermanence, for example, then you understand that the very cause that give you the birth is the cause for your aging, is the cause for your death. So you don't need an additional cause for your death or additional cause for your aging. It is inherent in the very cause. So that means that is the law of nature. So that law of nature must be understood. Now, the benefit of understanding that law of nature is you will be then able to see how everything is dependent upon each other, how everything is interconnected to each other. And once you're able to see this interconnection, interdependency, there is actually no room for hating others, for trying to destroying others. For example, once you understand how your hands and legs are, dependent, related to each other, no stupid person will use his hand unless that person, again, extremely drunk or crazy. Sometimes when you're very angry, then you do those things. But otherwise, any sane person, no sane person will use his hand to chop off the leg or cut the leg, because that without leg you can't walk, without hand you can't feed yourself. So therefore, just as you take care of the various parts of your body, and of course, talking about the body also is, again, most of us, we don't really understand how our body functions. The countless cells there, the neurons there, so many things are there to learn. So it's important. That's why there is a special meditation in Buddhism called mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the feeling, and so forth. So therefore, it is very, very important to understand your own life. And accordingly, once you understand your life, you will know how to best take care of yourself physically and also mentally, because by now you understand the state of your body, how it can be healthy, by what method it can be healthy. Similarly, once you understand your mind, you will know how to calm it, how to get rid of many of these unnecessary distortions, wild conceptions, where if you think and look carefully, much of the problems that we are seeing in the world, especially in the problems created by human beings, these are all product of misconceptions of the reality. Misconceptions are of many types, but whatever it may be, it is really the misconceptions of the reality. So once you understand, develop the right conception, that is why we are talking about developing right conception that understands interdependency, emptiness, impermanence, suffering, and so forth. This is not to frighten you. This is to tell you to understand the reality. Because once you understand the reality, there is possibility to escape from these sufferings. And at least you can reduce. And sometimes it happens that if you develop one right perspective, that can probably transform you, sometimes forever. It is possible. So therefore, it is important to not only listen to teaching, not only read books, but the most important thing is to digest it, to digest it, to relate it to your life, to use your human thinking power, and then develop the conviction, then follow it and practice it. That is very, very important. And once you develop that right attitude, then as the great Kadamba master say, once you have that right attitude, then nothing can harm you. Some of these great teachers, they say, if I'm going to die today, wonderful. These teachers are not like us, scared of dying and not knowing how to live. It's not like that. These teachers, they say, if I'm going to die today, wonderful. Why? Wonderful because I will not continue to live creating misery and suffering for other sentient beings. So in that way, it is good. But they are not pessimistic. They are not making this statement in a pessimistic way. They are saying that if I don't die today and live a very healthy, long life, that is wonderful. Because then I live a long, healthy life and continue to do many of these great things. Right? If you are a practitioner, you will then realize this as you age, as you grow older, you will then start thinking, oh my goodness, I'm already getting old. Now I will not be able to do many of these wonderful practices and things like that. You see, that's what you will miss. Not how much money you have or friends you have and things like that. You see, because your mental attitude in general is such that all sentient beings are your friends. So there's no shortage of friend for such a person. For us, we select just few, and that also with attachment, with self-grasping, and so therefore we don't have many reliable friends, and we also don't know how to live nicely, harmoniously with those few friends also. So again, the problem is one's own mental attitude, right? So therefore, it is extremely important to read these precious teachings. So I consider myself privileged that the foundation has asked me to uh, lead these sessions. As I said, I'm not somebody who is a great practitioner or has a lot of experiences, but I'm somebody who is really fond of this, reading these texts, and as much as possible sharing that with others, because I'm able to explain these teachings with my broken English. Many people don't have that privilege of knowing the text and also being able to speak at least in broken English. So that's why I'm considering this as a not only a wonderful opportunity for all of you, but also a wonderful opportunity for me also, right? So therefore, that's the benefit of spiritual friends. When spiritual friends ask you to do something, they'll ask you to do something spiritual, right? If the foundation has not asked me to do this, I don't know what I will be doing. I mean, hopefully, I'm not doing very destructive things, but maybe not doing something which is equally useful, right? So therefore, we should all rejoice and be happy. And as I repeatedly mentioned earlier, life is not how long you live. Life is each and every minute, every second. So each and every second and minute and hour, if you live happily and live meaningfully, that means you are living your life meaningfully. So if you do that, then you don't have to regret. Okay, in Buddhism, we don't believe about somebody who is waiting for you to punish you. It's not like that. It's your own karma which will, reward you or punish you in terms of its consequences. But we don't accept somebody who is out there waiting for you to punish you like that. And it's also important to realize that when we talk about the need to cultivate positive emotions, remove negative emotions, when we talk a lot about suffering, don't get the impression that we are all nasty people with nothing but negative emotions and that we are all going to die and it is really hopeless. We are not at all saying this. What we are saying is that we are not saying you are all bad. So it's important to realize the good things that you have done. Rejoice that, appreciate that, and gain more confidence to do more practice. That's what we needed. But however, we lay more importance on understanding the suffering and the negative emotions, which are the causes of suffering, because these are the ones which will bother us, which will obstruct us, which will harm us. So therefore, they are like enemy. So therefore, it's not saying that you don't have friends, but we are saying that there are some enemies also. So you need to be very careful, right? So therefore, in Buddhism, Buddhist psychology, when we study the mind and mental factors, then the number of the negative emotions are much more than the positive emotions, because these negative emotions are the ones that which are going to harm you. So therefore, you need to be very careful about all these different kind of negative emotions, like introducing, bad friends or uh, mean person. You need to be careful with this one. You need to be careful with that cunning fellow. Things like that. So it's saying like that. So don't get the impression that because people who don't understand, they say, "Oh, Buddhism is very pessimistic. They always talk about suffering." No. We don't talk about suffering all the time, but we talk repeatedly about it so that you are prepared. right? So that you don't suffer, so that you understand the causes of the suffering and eliminate and reduce it, so that you will have a more, reliable happiness and so forth. And so for that transformation, uh, just by ourselves, we may not be able, despite our trying best, we may not be able to do much. So therefore, you are compelled to rely on somebody, especially the authentic lamas or teachers. Even in ordinary worldly activities, if you want to learn carpentry, you need to learn from a experienced carpenter. You can't just by yourself, unless you're extremely clever. By yourself, you may not be able to learn all the arts or the tactics of carpentry. So you need to learn from somebody. So that's why we go to the class and things like that, right? So therefore, this is similar in Buddhist practices also, especially when we talk about spiritual practices, Buddhist practices, we are talking about unfamiliar domain, the internal unfamiliar domain, the process of transformation of the internal mind. So that can be explained only by highly qualified teachers. So that's why we are reading text like Atisha, which is who is highly qualified. So therefore, I think it is important for us to read this spiritual text, and not only reading, but reread it, listen to the teaching. Normally, I call it preview, and then actual listening, and then review. Three things are needed. First you should do the preview, read the text, and see how much meaning you can get out of it, and then you attend the actual session, and then the teacher will explain it. You might, many of the things about which you have doubt can be dispelled. And then after that, because when you are in the session, you might think, okay, now I got it and I understood it. But once you leave the session, then again you tend to forget everything, right? Therefore, it's important to review and see how much you're able to remember. How much you're able to remember. That's very important. And it is in this way then you will be able to, really grasp something in your mind. This is what you need. It's not that I received this Kala Chakra 21 times, or this initiation 30 times, but you have no sense, no idea what is Kala Chakra. So don't be like that, right? So it's important to preview and review. And then in terms of spiritual practice, I mentioned earlier also, it's like food. Just as we need to, ingest food every day, similarly, we need to do the spiritual practices every day, right? And with this kind of sustained practice, sustained reflection, sustained meditation, then you will be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, you see. Then you will find your way. And especially in the beginning, unless you make some effort, it's not going to come to you easily. Because one, as I said, the worldly beings are so powerful, the worldly environment is so powerful, you are more or less drawn into it, by from all directions. Then your internal, motivation and way of thinking is also not strong. So you are easily carried by the external situations and the force of the internal negative emotions. So therefore, you need to gather special courage and make a plan to do it. 10 minutes meditation every day or whatever, you need to make a plan. Just as we make budget according to our monthly income, we make a budget and make sure that you are not overspending it, right? So similarly, we need to make a kind of a spiritual budget. How much we are, earning, and how much we are using means how much benefit we are going doing for other people, something like that. So it is not very complicated, but the thing is we need to do it, not just talk about it. Okay, so therefore, again, I would share with you that we are lucky to be able to meet such precious teachings. And now in this text, in this particular chapter number 10, this is about primarily two things. One is, as we briefly mentioned, one is to respect, venerate the senior teachers like the lamas and the abbats and your teachers, things like that, and also people who are ordinary people who are doing good spiritual practices. And the second is looking after the rest of the sentient beings, considering them as your mother and things like that. So that is mainly the topic of this chapter. So we'll be discussing this. And again, this the dialogue starts with Atisha and Domtomba. And Domtomba asks the first question to Atisha by saying that I see many good people in this world, but there are not many people who really have very pure morality. Now look at each of these, you need to really think carefully. He says that in this world there are many good people, okay? But people who have very pure moralities like star in the day. And then among those people who have pure morality, also the number is much. There are many who have pure morality, but there are very few who doesn't have selfishness. I mean, look at this, selfishness. So when he made this observation, Atisha answers by this, by saying that if you have this self-clinging or selfishness, then you can't call that person as having pure morality. This is a kind of answer. It's not that Domdoma doesn't know, but for the sake of our understanding, he asked this question by saying there are many who have pure morality, but few who are without selfishness. And then Atisha answers this by saying, if you have selfishness, then it means you don't have pure morality. So again, the point is, the most important thing is that you need to remove your selfishness. As I mentioned earlier, selfishness here means thinking just about yourself and not about others. It's not saying don't think about yourself. You must think about yourself. Take good care of yourself. But what he is saying here when he talks about selfishness is just thinking about yourself and completely ignoring others. And this is happening in our everyday life, and especially in today's modern world. When you're able to get some advantaged position or money or power and things like that, then you don't hesitate in trampling the needs of others, right? So therefore, that's why the world is suffering. Instead of this selfishness, this self-cherishing attitude, instead of that, if we have that altruism, I'm not talking about bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, of course, is the most wonderful mind. But even if you have this wish to benefit others, that caring attitude, imagine the world will be transformed overnight. And with that, I can even say that the COVID-19 problem will also be almost solved immediately. You won't believe this. If you give some thought, you will understand this. Imagine, if the world is filled with leaders who really care about other people who are suffering from this pandemic, and then the hospitals, private or government or whatever, filled with doctors and nurses and others who are filled with this altruism. You see, imagine everything will be completely transformed. And in the future also, there will be less pandemics, possibility for less pandemics. So many of these pandemics, we can't blame COVID-19 itself. We can't blame the virus. These are all due to wrong human behavior, bad relation with animals, bad relation among other sentient beings, among human beings themselves, you see. So that's why all the sufferings are because of selfishness, narrow-mindedness, things like this. As clear as that, very clear. So that's why these teachings are so, not only so relevant, so important, but they are absolute necessity. And without this kind of positivism or attitude, just producing a vaccine, okay, good, it's good, wonderful, all the vaccines are coming out, it will help, wonderful. But again, if we forget this, the suffering we had encountered during this pandemic, and relapse back into the same stupid, bad behavior that we used to have, before the COVID, we will invite other pandemics. Then environmental destruction is happening at an alarming speed. We all know that. So therefore, there is no alternative. Doing this kind of basic fundamental spiritual practice is not an alternative, not a choice, not a luxury. These are things that we must do. We must do. We must do. Important. Whether you become Buddhist or not is different. But this basic spirituality practices, right? Loving kindness, compassion, patience, forgiveness. These are like our like daily bread, without which we can't survive. And then if you read such texts, then these texts not only teach these wonderful qualities, but they will give you a deeper insight why these qualities are so important in a subtle way, because we don't not understand the subtle, way these positive things function. Okay. So therefore, basically through this dialogue, what they're saying is, even the Sarvakas and Patika Buddhas, they made a lot of spiritual effort and practice, but at the end of the day, they actualize only liberation for themselves and not enlightenment for all sentient beings, because there is a tinge of selfishness. Now, contrarily, the Bodhisattvas who cultivated bodhicitta, the altruistic wish to gain enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, they got enlightened, they become Buddha, and are able to continuously help countless sentient beings because of that altruism. Shantideva very aptly, mentions in his Bodhisattva way of life that if you don't understand the difference between you and the Buddha, meaning that you who practice, the ordinary people like us who practiced for many lives and in this life also the self-cherishing attitude, that is our core practice, unfortunately. And then the Bodhisattvas, the Buddha who for so many lives practiced bodhicitta and had bodhicitta as the core practice. Now you compare today and see, where is Buddha today? Where are you today? We're in the same place, samsara, the cycle of existence, still encountering suffering, still developing negative emotions, still practicing these negative emotions and mistreating others as a way of life. And they look at the Buddha, because of his having practiced the altruistic mind of bodhicitta, the mind that cherishes the benefit of other sentient beings. Today, even though you may or not be able to see the Buddha, but today the Buddha is followed by millions and millions of people and getting inspiration from such a teacher, the teaching of altruism. Just as today His Holiness the Dalai Lama is benefiting so many people. So that's the difference. So therefore, one of the great teacher who was also a teacher of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Kunu Lama, the Kinori Lama Tenzin Gyaltsen, he has written a book called Praising the Bodhicitta, where he says, if you're happy, practice bodhicitta. If you're unhappy, practice bodhicitta. If you want to fulfill your purpose, practice bodhicitta. If you want to fulfill the benefit wish of other people, practice bodhicitta. For this life, practice bodhicitta. For next lives, practice bodhicitta. Whether you're eating, practice bodhicitta. Sleeping, practice bodhicitta. I mean, the point he's really making is this is like an laser, that would transform ordinary, iron into gold. This is the most important quality, the wish to benefit others. To develop actual bodhicitta may take time, but if you just follow that direction and try to be nice, physically, mentally, verbally, it will, I can 100% promise and guarantee that it will lighten your way, it will lighten your heart, it will bring smiles on the face of many, many other people. There's no doubt about that. And you don't have to be, financially rich to do all these things. You need to be internally rich. Once you have this internal richness, you can just, I have observed this very closely. Just as you all have, I'm sure you all have. I've observed this very carefully, with grown-up people, right? Grown-up people, not just kids, grown-up people, how they're behaving. I hardly see any difference between the grown-up people and the kids. It's a different level of playing the, but there's hardly any difference. The mind of the so-called ordinary grown-up people are just like child, And this reminds me, this is a story of a Buddha who once met a very elderly person who was 70 years old. And then the Buddha asked him, "How old are you?" He said, "I'm very old, I'm 70 years old." Then the Buddha said, "No, you're not old, you're very young." He said, "No, I'm very old, I'm 70 years old." Then Buddha said, "I'm not asking your age, but I'm asking in terms of your spiritual practice, spiritual knowledge, spiritual education. So in the field of spiritual education, you are still a child, young, you know nothing." So that is what we can see with everybody, with the so-called educated or powerful or whatever. If you watch them carefully, the way they're behaving, the way they're doing things, really, really like, unfortunately, uh, self-deceiving, in a way, innocent also. And then majority of the ordinary people who doesn't have much power and things like that, I call them innocent people. You see, they are really innocent. And you can easily help them. Just like small kids, you can easily help them. So these people also, you can easily help them. So therefore, it's important to understand how we are all, stuck in the same boat in a turbulent sea, So if imagine this, we are all sailing in the boat and suddenly there is a big turbulence. What will you do? The only thing that is left at that time is to be nice to each other. I can't imagine anybody in that turbulent sea, in that one boat. I can't imagine people trying to fight, especially in that when the sea is rough and turbulent. They become nice. They become very good friends. So life as a whole is really like, and Shantideva repeatedly used this example of the boat sailing in the ocean, sailing in the sea, right? So we are sailing in the same boat of this ocean of samsara. We are all suffering from birth and aging and sickness and death and separation, COVID-19, whatever, there's so many things. And then if you look at the nature of the body itself, it is more susceptible to suffering than for happiness. The capacity to suffer is kind of inherent in the makeup of the body itself. The capacity to experience happiness doesn't look like it is inherent there. It has to come from some other external sources. For suffering, the body has many things to activate that. For happiness, you need to depend on some external things, right? So once you understand this, then there is no reason, no room to hate others or disturb others and make other people's life miserable. So your only job is to how to make this life happy for you and happy for others, peaceful for you and peaceful for others. It's very, very easy. And once you lead such a life, even if you're somebody who wants money, money will come. I don't have time to elaborate this, but really this, as earlier I recited this shloka from Nagarjuna, who said that if you want to get established in your life, make effort in helping others. He did not say, then start, borrow money and start business. He didn't say. He said, if you want to get established in yourself, in your life, then start helping others. Right? So that is the core. That's the core practice. So therefore, this particular chapter is saying that when lamas and abbots are seen with veneration, cultivate respect. Because as I said, it is this from lamas and abbots, from you received all the vows, from you received all the transmissions, from whom you received all the teachings, So therefore, they are really the source of happiness and peace, like His Holiness Dalai Lama, You don't have to pay a huge sum of money to listen to his teaching and things like that. It's all free. And he feels, even at this ripe old age, he feels so happy when he's able to share these good things, good news, and help other people smile and help other people's life get a little bit calmness and happy. That's all what he need, you see. Right? Right? So therefore, it's really, really important to pay respect to those people who really have that spiritual insight, that spiritual experience. We are respecting them not because they have some name and power. Not this is not what is being taught here. What we are asking is pay respect to those people who really deserve respect. And even among the lamas, they are not talking about everybody who has the name Lama, because there are many again stupid so-called lamas also. They are actually not Lama, but who are so-called lamas. And you have the right to make distinction between that, of course. But so here we are saying you pay respect to those genuine lamas from whom you received so much. Now, paying respect means not just bowing down. Paying respect means many things. In many ways, you should, respect them, serve them. And then at the end of the day, the most important thing that you can do is repaying the kindness of that Lama is not just giving some gift or things like that, but practicing what he has asked you to practice. Offering of practice is the most important practice. If that Lama is a good Lama, genuine Lama, he will be happy by that offering of practice, not just offering some other things. So to such Lamas, and then abbats who give you the vows and things like that. So respect them. With veneration, cultivate respect. Person with Dharma eye, then there are many other practitioners. Dharma eye means people who try to develop the wisdom of the spiritual teachings. Respect them. Among our level also, there are many who may be ordinary, looks like ordinary. We don't know whether they are ordinary or not, but who are more or less at our level, but who are really wonderful people, good people. It is not so much about how well versed in a particular text or how well versed they are in, a particular teaching and things like that. But the most important thing is that person being a good person, trying to do the right thing, trying to do the spiritual text, and trying to cultivate love and compassion. These are wonderful people. These are wonderful people. I've seen few people like that in my life also. So respect them. These people will not ask for your respect, but you need to appreciate these people. As I told you earlier by citing that quotation from Martin Luther King, that I feel sad. I don't feel sad when bad people do bad things, but I feel sad when good people don't do good things. So this is another good thing that you need to do. Because gradually, if there is no respect for the right education, no respect for the right spirituality, no respect for the teacher, no respect for the Lama, then the value of the whole thing will go down. Then gradually we'll be living in a society where might is the right. People who have the money, they have the last say and things like that, which is very, very unfortunate. And the result of such negative ways of life we are already seeing in today's world. So we need to understand all this, why these people are important, why they are worthy of paying respect, right? So that's important. Good people, and pray for the long life of these great teachers. Pray for the long life, the good people everywhere, right? Very, very important. They are very precious. And sentient beings of beginning stage. So maybe ordinary sentient being, maybe in the very, very beginning stage of spiritual practice, but still they are making an attempt. So therefore, I remember one line from Chandakirti's Entering the Middle Way, where right in the beginning he says, one should pay homage to the wording is something like this. One should appreciate or pay respect to the moon in the beginning stage, because it is at the beginning stage of this development of the moon. Probably you call it crescent or something, crescent moon or something, which gradually becomes the full moon. So similarly, the sentient beings at the beginning stage, the bodhisattvas at the ordinary level, it is these people who are called by Buddhas as spiritual sons and daughters. And it is these people who are going to become the Buddha. So from this perspective, we can not only respect all the sentient beings, but also with this as an extension, we should take more care of the younger generation, the innocent kids who know nothing about the world we are living, about the world we have created. If you look at their face, sometimes you feel a lot of love, when you see the really fresh face and the little hands of these small kids, you feel like hugging them. And also sometimes when you think from a different perspective, you feel like crying, because what kind of world you have given them, what kind of world you are going to give them, you see, and what kind of world they are going to live after we are gone, you see. What is it that this generation is living for them? We have a responsibility. We have a responsibility. Make sure that these children, they are able to grow up in a very, very healthy way, flourish and happy, not just in terms of the so-called modern development, running after the shiny gadgets and completely forgetting the person itself. No, not this way, but being able to understand the life, being able to flourish, and be in peace and be happy. And people who are, carrying smiles on their face, we need to produce such a younger generation. That is our task. That is our responsibility. That is part of our spiritual practice also. So therefore, and sentient beings of beginning stage is very important, right? One, because they are making this initiative. Two, they don't know much, so it's our duty and responsibility to help them. Three, we must respect them because they are the seeds. Younger generations are normally, we call them the seed of the future, uh, seed of the nation. So don't just say it for the sake of saying, but take care of that seed of the nation, right? And sentient beings of beginning stage develop the recognition similar to the Buddha. See, because they have that basic quality to become the Buddha, right? Take care. If you want to get a beautiful flower from a particular plant, then you need to look after the seed, the sprout, water it, put manure, and all the necessary conditions. Then you will be able to see that beautiful flower. So therefore, and imagine from that, if you develop such a perspective, as is taught in Buddhism, all sentient beings are Buddha nature. Imagine, all sentient beings are Buddha nature, Buddha seed. So how can you say that I love this fellow and not this one? Because this fellow that you don't like also has a Buddha nature, has Buddha seed. So are you saying that you don't like the Buddha seed, Buddha nature, right? It's only because that Buddha nature has been, shrouded and clouded by certain gross negative emotions. So you need to help them remove that negative emotions and let their Buddha nature shine out. So therefore, no reason at all to harm them or to hurt them or to try to destroy them. Develop the recognition similar to the Buddha. And Shantideva in his Bodhisattva way of life repeatedly says, just as you venerate the Buddha, venerate the sentient beings. Just as you venerate the Buddha, venerate the sentient beings, not because the sentient beings and Buddhas are of same quality, same qualification, but because you derive the same benefit from both. Just as you derive many benefits from the Buddha, similarly you derive so many benefits from the seemingly, ordinary looking sentient beings. As I mentioned the other day, you develop compassion, not with the Buddha, but with a sentient being. You develop loving kindness with reference to a sentient being. You get your regular food and drink, whatever, with the help of other sentient beings. So it's unthinkable to try to destroy others, which is happening today, unfortunately. Because of our narrow-mindedness, every country is looks like thinking about that particular country alone, and why we are stockpiling arms. Arms are to be thrown. Arms are to be used for some. So they are stockpiling arms to destroy those other neighbors, which is really like destroying your leg or destroying your arm. And we don't have that understanding. And it's primarily because of you have selfishness and narrow-mindedness and no global sense of responsibility, no universal sense of responsibility, altruism. So you can't, in the true sense of the term, call such people as a great person. Okay? Develop the recognition similar to the Buddha. When seeing all sentient beings, develop the recognition similar to parents and children. So when you encounter or meet ordinary sentient beings, if they are younger than you, see them as your daughters, your sons, your children. If they're of your equal age, see them as your brothers and sisters. If they are older than you, see them as your father, your mother, or your elderly relatives and things like that, right? So once you develop that kind of loving attitude, loving kindness towards everybody, then all sentient beings will become very attractive to you, very close to your heart. Normally, we are unable to see somebody as close to our heart because we are unable to appreciate their good things, right? So once you develop that positive attitude, that person then becomes very dear to your heart. Doesn't matter facially or in terms of physical demeanor, that person may not be looking very handsome or very beautiful, but as and when you change your attitude, that physical appearances will also change. It's so interesting. After all, everything is imputed by the mind. When you love somebody, as we say, beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. It's absolutely true. When you love somebody, when you like somebody, that person looks beautiful. His speech is wonderful. His look is beautiful. His heart is wonderful, amazing. You see all the wonderful qualities in that person. When you don't like somebody, that person may physically may be very handsome, very beautiful, but you don't see any good thing in that person. So again, it's your attitude. So therefore, we need to develop this attitude of developing loving kindness towards everybody. And once you develop this genuine loving kindness to everybody, then you will develop this sense of responsibility, thinking that how nice if I'm able to remove their suffering. Right? And once you develop this wish to remove their suffering, then you develop what is known as the special attitude, saying that I will myself take the responsibility to help them in whatever way I can. And once you develop such mental determination, there will be no difficulty for you to helping others because you are mentally now, you love somebody. Imagine, take the example of you're helping your very, very kind mother or your loving child, When they encounter difficulty, you just plunge into that problem, and you instead of getting tired or difficult, you will appreciate and you will feel happy, saying, yes, I was able to help my child, I was able to help my mother. There's not much problem. It's again mental attitude. But when you are reluctantly pushed by somebody to help somebody, then because of this mental reluctance, it's very difficult and you get easily tired. And that's why today in many hospitals, the doctors and nurses are suffering from what they call as compassion fatigue. And they suffer from compassion fatigue not because they have no proficiency. They are highly trained people, in terms of their job. They are very good, and they are also very enthusiastic to do their job professionally. So in the beginning, they work very hard, but because they have not equipped themselves with this inner greater insights of genuine far-reaching loving kindness and compassion and so forth. So therefore, when they encounter a very difficult situation, when they encounter a very difficult patient, then gradually they get tired and suffering from that compassion fatigue or emotional fatigue. Take the example of the mothers. They work so hard in looking after their kids, but there are not many mothers suffering from compassion fatigue or emotional fatigue. I've seen many of them. It's not easy for the mother to look after these kids, bearing that child in the womb for 9 months and 10 days and things like that. So much difficulty. And then giving birth, the labor, And then after that, for several years, not just few months, several years, they have to, worry and look after that each and every step of the child, what is happening. The mother has to worry day and night. But still, if you talk to the mother about her child, she will be just full of praises to her child. She will heartily talk about how much she is suffering, she is tired because of helping her kid, things like that. You won't hear that much because there is love, there is compassion, even if that is not the perfect love, perfect compassion, but much, much better type of love and compassion, although alloyed with attachment. But because of that, she enjoys that. She enjoys that. So these are clear examples we need to keep in mind. So therefore, when seeing all sentient beings develop the recognition similar to parents and children. I mean, after all, if you look at the meaning of the parent and children, what does that mean? Parents are those who had given you this body, okay? But then it's not enough just to give the body. There are many other people who are helping you to sustain that body, nurture that body, right? And then the relation between the parents and children, ordinarily speaking, not necessarily good. I remember one stanza from Aryadeva's 400 verses by saying, where he says that just as the father sees the son as something very close to his heart, the son will not see that. Therefore, this world will go down and down and down. And therefore, it will be very difficult to find liberation or nirvana. It is true, right? So therefore, unless you have this positive attitude developed through training, through practice, simply being physically related to somebody may not necessarily help you develop that right kind of rapport, right kind of loving kindness, compassion, and so forth, right? So therefore, it is important to see all sentient beings. You can see all these sentient beings very kind to you. Ordinary people, as I mentioned earlier, ordinary people, I've met a number of ordinary people. Basically, they're all quite good people. They make mistakes, silly mistakes, we all make, but basically they're all good people, ready to share whatever crumbs of food, they have, whatever, they are really nice. Really, especially people who are living in remote village areas, right? But then gradually, of course, unfortunately, we are getting more and more machinized. So things are changing, but not necessarily bringing more happiness and peace. So therefore, that's another reason why we should develop these internal qualities. Okay, so we stop here. So basically what he's saying with regard to this, your Dharma practice, on the one hand, you do the 7 limb, practice towards in relation to the teachers, lamas, and so forth, and pay respect to them, serve them, and so forth, remember their kindness. Then on the other hand, think about the sentient beings, and with respect to them, practice the 6 or 10 perfections, and cultivate the 2 bodhicittas, aspirational bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. So that is what this text is basically saying. Okay. So we stop here today.
Okay, thank you, Lakshula. Time for some questions. Yeah. And well, Amita had asked the first question, but she's yielded to Natasha. So Natasha, please unmute and ask her question.
Thank you very much. Geshe, today we have more than 100 people listening to your teaching on YouTube, to the Russian translation. And I have 3 questions as the last time. The first one, actually, the person is wondering about 2 terms, Yidam and Ishtadeva. Are they same, or is there any difference in the meaning of these terms?
Yidam basically is a personal deity. There are many deities like Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, and so forth, and from them you choose a particular deity. If your focus is more on developing wisdom, you might choose Manjushri. If your focus is more on developing compassion, you might choose Avalokiteshvara and things like that. So depending upon one's, what kind of initiation you have received, what practices you want to do, You have, it doesn't have to be just one. So you can have one or many personal deities. So that is called Yidam. Okay. And then Ishta Devta, which basically means in Dwepehla. I think these are very similar. I really don't know much about this one. Ishta Dwepehla, again, Dwepehla usually translated means the deity of your desire. So again, I think this is the deity that you choose. And the reason that we talk about this Ishta Devta, or the deity of the desire, means different people have different mental dispositions. Among the deities, you see some of them in a very peaceful uh, state, like Avalokiteshvara and so forth. Then there are others who are very, very wrathful, like Yamantaka and so forth. So why do we have all this kind of different, deities? Some are peaceful, some are wrathful. This is because this has to do with the different mental dispositions of the practitioners. For some people, if they want to deal with their negative emotion, they feel like, practicing better if they have a very wrathful, powerful deity helping them, then they feel that, yes, I can destroy my enemy, negative emotion, and so forth. Not by a smiling deity. Then some people, they don't prefer this kind of wrathful deity. They prefer more, peaceful, compassionate deity. Then they choose those uh, deities. So that is the meaning, that you choose a deity according to your desire. Ishta means your desire, Okay.
Well, hello to my friend Susan, and maybe you'd like to unmute and ask a question. Yes, Susan.
Sorry. So I'm not sure Natasha was finished, but I'll jump in quickly. You mentioned, Geshe-la, that there are people who are not real lamas, or they're lamas, but maybe not maintaining their practice. And I wanted to ask, how is one designated a lama? Because I know people here, there's a fellow here in the West who is a Westerner who calls himself Lama. And I don't see how he can get this qualification. So how is it possible to become Lama? Who is giving this, who confers that title?
Yeah. Good question. So the thing is, Lama is not the monopoly of the Tibetans. So Lama can be from anywhere. But the word Lama actually means superior. So Lama means a superior being. So that Lama is called superior because of many reasons. One, the true Lama is somebody who cares more about the well-being of other people than oneself. Second, the true Lama should be somebody who cares more about future lives than this life. So then the Lama, the genuine Lama, must be somebody who has no knowledge of many of these teachings, and who practices it, and who most importantly has this compassion for others. So these few qualities must be there. So you do, actually speaking, in the Tibetan society, one kind of loophole or drawback, I don't know how to say this, is the so-called reincarnations, the tulkus. They automatically termed as lamas. Okay, but then this whole process of recognizing somebody is not that easy, very complex. And then additionally, just by having recognized somebody as the reincarnation, not necessarily number one be the reincarnation, and may not be practicing, may not have the practice. Also, all those problems are there. It's a societal problem, you see. So therefore, they may carry this title, but they may not be the true Lama in the true sense of the term, right? And then there are others who may not be a reincarnation, because the word Lama is normally used, ordinarily speaking, to these tulkus and reincarnations. But then there are others who, like a senior practitioner, who are Geshe. Not everybody, not every Geshe become Lama, but who are Geshe and then who is really, really well versed in the Buddhist subjects, his practices, and then is highly revered by the the followers, the students. And then he gets this title from the people, Lama, because he is definitely the Lama in the true sense of the term, because of his erudition, because of his practice and experience and things like that. So this is how that the title is obtained by their Lama. So ordinarily speaking, you cannot just jump and say, I am the Lama, then that itself has a lot of hypocrisy. I'm not referring to this to any particular Western or Tibetan, who doesn't matter whoever that person is. Such kind of stupid people will be there in every society. So what is now important is we cannot just keep on criticizing that person because it is something he wants to do. So I don't know how we can stop it, but at least we have the right to not to respect or not to follow that person. Respect as a human being, yes, we should have respect for everybody, but not to follow that person, right? So therefore we should really, that's why it's very important for the students to choose their teacher or choose their Lama properly, not quickly, just like marriage, without taking time and finding the background. And if you just see the face and oh, beautiful, handsome, and you get married, and then the end result is very soon there is a divorce, which is a rising case these days. So the relationship between the teacher and student also should be based on solid you know reasoning, examination, right? So right in the beginning, when you don't know much about that person, for example, now you're listening to my talks, and if you find the talks useful, then you say thank you, Geshe-la, it was very useful. Of course, even if I give you a cup of tea, you give me a cup of tea, that is normal human courtesy to say thank you. But that doesn't mean that I become your teacher, I become your Lama, you see. So for that, you need to take more time and see how good it is and things like that. So in my case, normally I don't accept anybody letting me as their teacher, because I don't have that quality. I don't have that experience. So therefore, so you need to be very careful. Yeah.
We have a question on chat from Subhadra Mahajan, whose microphone isn't working. So I'm sorry, Jackie and Natasha, just hold on. The question is, the text says, give up negative friends.
Yeah.
What if that is not possible? For example, in the case of family members.
Yeah.
My question is, how does one deal with constant negativity from those who are close to oneself and remain oneself on the path to positivity?
Yeah, therefore, all these practices, you need inner strength and proper understanding. But giving up negative friend doesn't mean that you completely forget their well-being. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you hang your head together with this fellow, because you are also ordinary person or vulnerable, and you will have a lot of unnecessary problems. So distance yourself, just as these days we are talking about social distancing. Distance yourself, and then if there is a possibility to still help that person, help. Then after that, just finish. Maintain a distance. This is better. It is not necessary that you will be able to help somebody, living with that person or things like that. But the situation is complex. We need to deal with this case by case. There is not one quick solution for everything. You see, there is a family ties, so many things, the social, binding, so many things. It's not as easy as I say, but there are ways and means. There are ways and means. In general, also, as I said earlier, in general, also in terms of human relation, I'm sure you will recall what I said earlier by citing that quotation from Kamala Shila's Stages of Meditation, where he says, in terms of human relation, it should be like the relation you maintain with fire. If you go too close to the fire, it will burn you. If you stay too away from the fire, you will not get the warmth, right? And even in the Tibetan saying, we say that the blessing of a Lama is greater from a distance, right? So when you are far away from His Holiness Dalai Lama, not able to see him, it's a human thing, you long to see him, and you come for 3 days teaching, you feel blessed and inspired, wow, wonderful, And then those of us who always live close to His Holiness, we may not have that that excitement, you see. So it's like a human thing. So in all human relationships, the it's important to maintain some distance, while physical distance. Mentally, of course, you should have love and compassion and remove all the disliking or hatred to that person.
I'm going to request Jackie to ask the next question. Natasha has been most kind and said she has 3 more questions, and then it's up to you, Lhakdor, whether you want to do it next week or respond to it now. But we'll request Jackie to unmute and ask her question. Then you tell us, Lhakdor, we'd love to spend all evening and all night with you, but you tell us when you have to move on to dinner.
Yeah.
Okay, Jackie. Unmute, please. Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I just wondered when you spoke about, thank you for your teaching. When you spoke about how bodhisattvas plunge into other people's problems, at some point then they wouldn't have much time to practice themselves. What's the fine line between how much a bodhisattva goes out and helps others and also spends time trying to become a Buddha?
In Buddhism, we have this practice called practice during the meditative session and practice during the post-meditative session. So you have the meditative session during which you do your meditation or study and whatever. But you can't just continue to meditate and sit alone all the time, generally speaking. So therefore, there is a post-meditative session during which you have your lunch or dinner or mix with people, go to market, shopping, things like that. So during this post-meditative sessions, you meet so many people, you see, so many other sentient beings. So during which you should try to practice what you have practiced during the meditative session. The meditative session is just like charging the battery. Having charged the battery, the flashlight must be used when you go into the darkness. So that is when you meet people, work with your co-worker in the office, then the trouble may arise. So during that period of kind of darkness, when you actually encounter, meet and talk to people, there is possibility of encountering difficulties. So it is during those occasions, you must remember the practices that you've done during the meditative session and should be able to implement it, right? So therefore, for a bodhisattva, all human activities, whether it is sleeping or taking food or even going to the toilet and bathroom, his mind is constantly practicing. So everything becomes practice. Okay.
So Geshe, how are you for time? 3 more questions from Natasha and 1 from Dinara.
I will answer quickly.
Wonderful. Okay, Natasha, please go and unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, Geshe, for your kindness. Next question is, if everything exists, if everything is just dependently designated, right, by our mind. So how do the things which no one labeled or designated, how do they exist?
There's nothing that no one has not labeled. I don't think there is anything that is not labeled. It may have been labeled by human beings or labeled by other sentient beings. So I don't think there is anything which is not labeled. Especially in today's world, the scientists are studying almost everything, right? And then there are many other types of sentient beings. It's not just human beings. They also give designations.
Okay, Natasha, you through?
Yes, okay,
wonderful.
Thank you.
So the final question from Dinara, if you please unmute.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We spoke about the teachers. My question is how to check the teachers, because the teachers can speak very beautiful words. He can speak, I'm very good teacher. Now, how I can check him motivation?
The good teachers never say that I am very good. So that itself is a that itself is an indication, you see. Okay. In Tibetan, we have a saying that the lines of a tiger is on the outside, there's on the body, the stripes, and the lines of human beings are inside. That means basically in the mind. But because of that mind, thinking of the mind, external, indications will also come out. So if that person is expressing too much about himself, then you need to be a little bit watchful and careful. But at the same time, don't expect your teachers as Buddhas, completely enlightened. You won't find anybody like that, right? And in fact, again, how good, it's not just the teacher. How good the teacher is also very much dependent on the perception of the student. Like there are a number of people who say bad things against His Holiness the Dalai Lama. For many of us, it is unthinkable, you see. Like the Chinese leaders, they say all the nasty things about His Holiness the Dalai Lama, you see. So when the student's mind should also be receptive and should also have the capacity to judge what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, and so forth. I remember when His Holiness was giving this commentary on the Guru Puja, Lama Chopa, there is a lot of talk about how to relate to teacher and things like that. And then particularly there is a line which talks about seeing the Lama as the Buddha. Then His Holiness warned that you should be very careful. On one level, you should be very careful, right? You should use your common sense, use your brain, use your analytic power and find out. And you have every choice to follow that Lama or not to follow that Lama. So adopt that practice. Then second, in some cases, the ordinarily looking Lama can be also a manifestation of Buddha, manifestation of Buddha also, but you will not be able to see that person as the Buddha, as an enlightened being. And in fact, even if that real Buddha comes in front of you as the Buddha, you will not be able to relate to him. You will not be able to see him, right? So, for example, I remember this very clearly. His Holiness gave this example of relating to a cat. If you want to talk to the cat, the only thing you can do is meow. Not any human language or other thing. It's only that language that the cat can understand. So the Lamas, even if there are really highly, realized beings, they come in a form in which we can relate to. The Buddha also came in the form of an ordinary human being. So that's why we call his activities as 12 deeds, which is specifically done so that he's able to relate to ordinary human beings. So we need to see from many angles, many perspectives. Okay. All right. Hello.
Okay, sorry, that was me being technically illiterate. Well, I mean, just to say thank you, and I'm going to test your compassion if you didn't hear me say that. And there's one more question from Dimple, who's, it's a carryover question which you couldn't ask at the last session. Okay. So if you have the time, that would be wonderful.
Yes, I have time.
Okay, Dimple, go ahead. Can't see you, Dimple. Where are you? I got a message. Okay, I think she's. Okay, I think we'll carry that over to the next session. She's either sort of technically struggling as I was. It hasn't shown up. So thank you, Lhakdor, and for all the wonderful things you said. And I just wanted to say that we think you're wonderful. And deeply grateful for your time. And we are really already looking forward to next Friday and feeling so good. It's like it's like, when you're in the middle of something wonderful and you know that there's another half of it to go. So we're delighted that you have indicated that you will do another 3 months. That's 12 classes at least with us. And so thank you very much. And for everybody, certainly as I mentioned in the beginning, COVID is going ballistic in Delhi. Stay safe, stay well, and with Allah Ta'ala's blessings, let's be strong, resilient, and most importantly, compassionate to the many people around us who are struggling so very hard. Thank you, Allah Ta'ala.
Thank you.
Our deep gratitude.